have the sort of short the banker, long Bitcoin mentality, but then they also make the number go up. So we cheer them. But for your average person, say in Venezuela or Lebanon or Iran, who cares about Bitcoin, they don't want Wall Street and institutions here, right? They want to use Bitcoin as money or a store of value.
I think it's a little bit more nuanced in that like we're not saying like the bankers are here, which I'm sure they are coming in. Well, they definitely are. They are. It's actually really interesting. I'll get to that later. But like what I'm saying is the smart guys, it's the rocket scientists that trained to put, rockets into space, being hired up by some quant firm to build, some front-running software to beat the market. And then they're coming over to crypto to go, wow, it's inefficient. Let's build some stuff to make it efficient. It's not like the chairman of Goldman Sachs is coming in to do that, because those guys come in and they want to dominate and control the currency. These guys are coming in to build cool stuff to add to the ecosystem. And ultimately, I think I don't think I've come across anyone who doesn't really, like, after working with it, really believe in the ethos of it. And usually in a much more sophisticated way. So, like, you look at SBF over in FTX, right? He's exactly that, what I'm talking about, like a little bit of Wall Street background and coming over like, whoa, look at all this stuff, let's build some cool shit. So that's what I'm talking about. Meanwhile, you got the bankers coming over, and they're coming over in a really interesting rock and a hard place, because they make commercial and retail banks make money by essentially propagating debt and expanding the money supply, through their process of loaning out and then getting deposits and loaning out, and they expand the money supply. And effectively, the central bank goes down through this food chain. And now with central banks effectively saying, we're cutting you guys out, we're going to issue our own currency, central bank digital currencies. The retail and commercial banks are now faced with two things that they can do. Option one is to roll over and die, and option two is to be a Bitcoin bank. Right, essentially be on the other side, like, of the divide, because really it's coming down to central bank digital currencies and free and open peer-to-peer currency. And so you can see one by one, like, what is it? DBS Singapore's banking Bitcoin. Standard Charter, I think, is initiating something in Europe. Morgan Stanley moving, JP Morgan. And it's like they're all coming over to Bitcoin, and they don't have a choice. So that's the interesting thing, is on that side of things, those guys are coming into Bitcoin with I think their tails tucked, because they're forced to, with the valuations now no better than Coinbase, right?
Yeah.
And SBF now, like, I don't know if he was joking or was being serious, but it's like, it's not out of the question to acquire Goldman Sachs. Like,
or
it gives you a little, well, and the CME, right? It gives you a little bit of a completely flip side thing. We're not that small anymore. Definitely not at the current growth rates. Like, this thing's going to 100 trillion, if not more. I imagine the economy is going to get a lot bigger, just because productivity is improving. So yeah, like, this is probably a 10x above what banks, the size of the scale of banks, So yeah. I mean, we're so used to, 12 years of being the little guys, but now we're in this zone of breaking out of being little to becoming mainstream. And, you can tell that because the chairman of central banks are now, fudding Bitcoin.
They're talking about it. I mean, regardless of what they're saying, the very fact that they're talking about it is astounding.
It's like the very largest banking powers in the world are now scared of this little thing that we thought was a toy a few years ago. So it really, what is it? It's roughly 160 million people have exposure to Bitcoin today, but that doubles every year. So it's not actually about the size we are in, but it's the growth rate. And the current network growth rate is the fastest growth rate of any technology we've ever seen in the history of mankind, which means that we'll be at saturation within a decade.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, I'm kind of wondering how long will it take for central bank digital currencies to actually roll out and be ready, because they've got a race on their hands. If they can't get this done in 5 years,
it's over. Yeah, they'll have lost.
The crypto is de facto. Bitcoin is de facto. It's too late.
I agree.
They really only got a window of probably, I don't know,
3 to 5 years. Yeah, maybe 2. Yeah, I think you're right. I think China's going to roll out, but the others are going to be very slow.
Yeah, China's going to be it's going to be quite a closed. I imagine it'd be quite closed because how they do it, they'll be the fastest. They'll be the fastest. But
easy to be fast when you have complete control over what you're building and don't have to ask anyone else's opinion. It's so funny though, talking about what you mentioned with SBF. I had Steven Stoneberg from Bittrex Global on the show, and he said, it used to be like the bankers were the rich guys. And then in like the 70s, 80s, whatever, the hedge fund guys came in. They're like, haha, you're $1 billion. I've got $2 billion. Like, we're the rich guys. And now you have 28-year-olds who are worth 10 or 20 billion and just completely, right? So the future of wealth is going to move to the crypto billionaires.
Yeah,
I mean, and they're going to be 20, 30 years younger than the guys who made their money on Wall Street.
And this is the interesting thing is like, the founding fathers of America were essentially millennials when they wrote the founding documents, right? And I mean, there's been cases like this in Europe. I think, is it Estonia? I think is one of these countries where it was like the average age of the politicians was in their 30s. Like a lot of progress happens when the younger generation get to rewrite the rules according to the changing times. And like what's interesting now is the new power that's rising is the millennial generation, but the cream of the crop are making billions in crypto right now.
Yeah,
and they have very fine understanding of how monetary markets work. So I see a huge power change, right now. It's like, if you ever read the book, The Fourth Turning, it really describes every 4 generations. They go through archetypal kind of changes, and every fourth turning, last one was Great Depression going into World War II, and we had a major shift of regime and infrastructure change.